Polkadot, like many of the other cryptos, is taking a bit of a rest after quite a rally. And so far, it's looking like a pretty healthy pullback in what is otherwise a very bullish development. This is the 30-minute chart, actually the 1-hour chart of Polkadot, and things are looking pretty positive so far. When we look at our low that we hit on February 24th, you can see we've been going more or less straight up. And the most likely interpretation, most likely correct interpretation for what we see so far is that this is 3 waves up, with this being the one here in amber orange, a nice deep wave 2, about 61.8%, which is a recurring theme in Polkadot. 61.8% retraces are all the rage. And we should have hit at least 23.97 for our third wave. We came pretty close, didn't quite hit it. So here's where things get interesting. We do have 3 up, and we may be done with our fourth wave. This trough here may be the bottom, or it may better stand as an A wave down, an expanded B wave flat up, and we have ourselves a C wave that is impending completion with possibly a lower low. This would make some sense because sometimes when you don't hit your standard target for your third wave, the subsequent B wave will actually get there itself. So we came close, not quite. The other interpretation is that this is actually the third of a third, and our actual third wave will go a little bit higher before we have a lengthier fourth wave correction and a final fifth wave up. Either way, there's nothing indicative of too much further downside ahead. Now, if we do fall deeper down, it could indicate that we're having a deeper wave 2, with this possibly being 5 waves up, or it could just be a 3-wave first wave to start off a larger diagonal pattern. In the big picture, when we look at our MACD, our MACD, it looks fantastic in Polkadot as well as it does in many other cryptos. We're actually starting to get a little overbought, which is a good sign. We want this thing to get stretched out a little bit as we rally. And this pattern, this chart, is available in the description below. So please check out that link if you'd like to take a look. It hasn't changed that much, although I have added an alternate pattern. But the first pattern I'll go over is red, which calls for that lower low that we haven't gotten, and it's looking less and less likely as we go, but it's not totally off the chart yet. It's still there. So breaking 1516 would make this far more likely, although our green pattern doesn't really officially invalidate until we break the low that we hit in the middle of summer 2021, which sits around 1036. If I'm not mistaken, actually it's 1042, somewhere in that zone. So that is the red pattern. Again, back of my mind, it's still there. We can't take that off for academic reasons, and you never know. Sometimes you have to save yourself for yourself by maintaining the possibility that this red pattern could still happen. The green pattern is exactly the same as before, and this is the one that got us all excited over the past few months, in that we possibly have, well, it looks like we have a 1-2-1-2 nested setup, so that's 2 degrees. However, because we don't have as much history in Polkadot going back, we could even interpret this peak here as an even larger degree first wave. And that, well, it doesn't really align with anything else because there wasn't any other crypto that started at this point. But point being that it could be a triple nested 1-2 setup, which would make this the third of a third of a third. And that could make for an explosive vertical rally. And what we're looking for first to continue that possibility is that we need our first wave to get somewhere into this blue lavender box. And that would fall somewhere between about $26 and $39. When we look back here, that more or less aligns with where we would expect our fifth wave to end up on the smaller degree, based on this being a first wave and presumably being in the third wave right now and possibly the fourth wave. Our fifth wave would actually get somewhere right around that $26 to $27 mark. I'm actually going to mark it right here to give more of a visual. And again, that does align with the logarithmic big picture view that has us getting somewhere in this box just for this first wave. That's what this pattern here is showing. I kind of drew out what it would look like. We'd expect a relatively deep second wave. As I mentioned, the rule of 61.8% seems to apply repetitively and recursively in Polkadot. So expect a relatively deep and scary second wave. As long as it's a zigzag and we don't break the original low, we're going to be set and primed for a powerful rally that could become very spectacular, because this would be the third wave of the third wave of the third wave of the even bigger third wave of an even bigger third wave. So this thing could go completely vertical once we get that pullback, just to stretch that rubber band out. Eventually, we would get into this box around 385 in that region. If we are falling green, expect standard Fibonacci targets to be hit with our final third wave top, getting us somewhere between 590 and 1175. If we do have a nice sideways consolidation for the fourth wave, we would likely get past $1,800 for our final fifth wave. So that's green. The purple pattern is a little bit different, And this is looking for more of a diagonal rally. This is a recurring alternate in many of my crypto updates. As a matter of fact, it's the primary in most of my altcoins right now. In Polkadot, I still have the impulsive structure as the primary because it's still looking textbook impulsive. The only concern being that we had a slightly deeper than ideal second wave here. You can see we actually broke the 76.4% retrace on our second wave, which would give this purple pattern a bit more credibility. In that case, we would expect our rally targets to not go quite as high. So assuming this is a first wave and this being the second wave, we have presumably already gotten an A-B setup for our third wave up. So I'm actually going to draw that out here to make it a bit more clear because I don't have the right nomenclature, but that would imply that this is an A wave rally. The pullback was a B wave, and our C wave would take us up into this region right around 211 to 269, somewhere in that range, possibly as high as 385. That's about as high as you'd expect your third wave in a diagonal to get. And if that's the case, we would expect a pretty spectacular and deep fourth wave. And I know I'm showing that fourth wave would be right here. In reality, it would probably be a lot more further out in the future because this is working a bigger time scale. That'll be very sharp. You'd lose a lot of your profits if you didn't sell at that point. And we'd have a final fifth wave that would take us up somewhere past 590 to 1175. Small possibility of hitting 1800. It could be quite a blow off. This would be much further out in time. If I had to make any kind of timing estimates, I could do a rough estimate based on what we have so far. So if I do that, assuming this whole thing was the 1 and the 2, and I could translate this thing up a little bit through the top of where our wave 1 peak presumably is, that would put us somewhere between as soon as this April all the way to maybe September, so fall of 2022. And again, these channel trend lines, they can be accurate, but typically they're far more accurate when you have a bit more history, especially once you have your third and fourth in place. You can make a very accurate, well, somewhat accurate timing projection for your fifth wave as well as price. So again, very crude estimate. For the most part, across cryptos, I'm expecting a pretty good rally into the fall of this year, into the end of this year, possibly as late as in the Q1 of 2023, before we have that, I guess, the penultimate correction. This applies in most of the cryptos. We're going to see what we get as we go because as we get more information, we can make a better forecast. Right now, we need to get out of these gates. Again, we have what is probably 3 waves up. I'd like to see a 5th wave, especially in Polkadot, because I am expecting more of an impulsive wave for that green. As far as how to distinguish these, you're probably not going to know which one of these were falling until we blast through the third wave resistance. So if we start going right through 385, that's a very good indication, a strong indication that we are following the green pattern. So a lot coming up. Stay tuned for updates. Subscribe so that you don't miss them. And until next time, thank you for watching and happy trading.